Hi, Algebra 3 students. We are now ready to move on to our next part of Chapter 1. And so what you need in front of you are the notes that look like this. You will need the slope, intercept, and point slope. It's just like 4 pages, and that's what we're going to be going over today. So the first part of the chapter is all about the first part of the chapter is transformation of functions, and the second part is going to be our linear review relationship. So let's get started. Okay. The first way you can write a line, there are many ways that you can write the equation of a line, and we're going to talk about slope intercept. So slope, you got to have the slope, and then you have to have the intercept, hence the name slope intercept form. It's just good old y equals mx plus b. And we're going to take a look at the graphing method first. What happens when you have a picture? So put in 2 nice points. That's the lattice points. Okay. And then you're going to look at the distance between those 2 points, or how do I get from one point to the next? So I started at -1 and I went up 3, and then I went over 2. Now you're going to hear me say slope is the change in y over change in x. You might have heard it as rise over run. That's not wrong, but you're going to hear me say change in y. So delta y, that triangle means change, divided by the change in x. So how far up did you go compared to how far to the right did you go? And so our delta y, or our change in y again, is I started at -1 and I went all the way up to 3. So I basically had to walk 4 units. So my change in y is 4. Now my change in x is going to be 2. So I now have a slope of 4 over 2. Well, that can be reduced. Always reduce your slope as much as possible. And our slope is going to be 2 over 1, or just 2. If you write 2 over 1, that's not wrong. Okay. But now we also need to find the b. And the b is what I've just circled. That is the coordinate point of where the graph crosses. And it's a coordinate point, the y-axis, and it's 0, 3. You basically have the ingredients now to write y equals mx plus b. So it'll be y equals 2x plus 3. And there's the equation of that first line. I want you to pause the video right now and try b on your own. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at example B. How did you get from one point to the other? Well, I started on the very left. I always work from left to right, and I had to go down 1, and then I had to go over 2. So be very careful about this. When you go down 1 to the right 2, you have to mathematically tell me you went down 1. That's -1 over 2. Students always forget that down. Always forget the negative. I can't reduce it, so there it is. And my b here is going to be right there at 0, 3 again. So my b is 0, 3. Okay. So then my equation of my line is just going to be y equals -1/2 x plus 3. That's the graphic method. Pretty nice and straightforward, very visual. Graphing method is very nice. Okay, but let's look at 2 other examples here. I'm going to start the exact same way. Sometimes we have special cases, and these example C and D are special cases. But let's start the same way that we did before. So put in 2 nice points. I'm just going to pick those 2 points, any 2 points on the line. And let's go up. How far up did I have to go? Well, I didn't. There is no change in y. So my change in y is actually 0. Okay, so now what's my change in x? How far to the right did I have to move? Well, I had to move 1. Now I want everybody to put this in their calculator. What is 0 divided by 1? Yeah, you got it, it's 0. Okay, so now let's find b. B is going to be the second part of this equation. And it's right there. I went down to -3, so my coordinate point is 0, -3. Let's see. Oh, I forget the negative, guys. So my equation is y equals 0x. Now, it's not +3. It's going to be -3 right here. Ignore what I write. It is -3, okay? And you're going to see me say, well, it should just be 3. Be aware. You don't have to put the 0. The slope is 0, but a lot of times we'll just say y is -3. Okay, again, that should be -3. All right, let's try example D. Put in those 2 nice points. So let's do the same thing. Well, my change in y is I went down 1. So my change in y is -1. But what's my change in x? I didn't move left or right, so my change in x is 0. Again, stop the video and put this into your calculator. What is -1 divided by 0? Check it. Okay. What do you get? You should get this big error. Error, cannot do. That means it's undefined. It means that this slope of this vertical line is so steep that we don't have a number to define it. That's how steep it is. Slope is just measuring how steep something is. And if you are dividing by 0, you can't do it. It's undefined. Now look at B. Okay, that's the y-axis. That graph never crosses the y-axis. So again, it's undefined. There's nothing we can do. So does that mean we're scot-free? We can't write the equation of a vertical line? Nope, we can. And it's just going to be x equals 3 because x is literally stuck at 3. Okay, now this is interesting. A horizontal line is y equals a number, like y equals -3. Okay, and then a vertical line is x equal a number, like x equal 3. Students will get those confused and flip-flop them. Pay attention to what is stuck. Vertical, x is stuck at a number. You're going to be tested on that a lot. All right, part 2 though. Part 2 is we take the graph away. So now we have to think about, we still have to find M and B, but there's no picture. So for those of you who are in my class, you're going to find out real quick, I'm very much a table person. And I'll put everything in tables. Mr. Hogsett will be a little bit different maybe, but if you prefer equations, just use equations. It's not a big deal. I'm just showing you a different way. So if I'm given 2 points and I'm asked to write the equation of the line, the first thing I do is I create a table. Okay, and I put my 2 points in that table. So -2, 3, -1, -2. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing I did on the graph. I have to find my change in y. So I find my change in y, which is going to be 3 to -2. So that means my change in y, if I started at a +3 and went to a -2, I went down 5. So I'm at -5. Now I go to the left-hand side of the table and I find my change of x. So my change in x, I'm at -2 and I went to -1. So that means I just added 1. My added 1 doesn't look good, but that's what it is. So then my slope is just m equals -5 over 1. Now if you prefer the slope equation than the table, perfect. You're good. You still get a slope of -5 if you use the slope equation. One of the reasons I like to use the table is because when I find B, sometimes the table is set up just for something nice. So if I were to carry my table out one more step, I just keep the pattern going, meaning I add 1. Well, there's my x equals 0. And then if I add or subtract another 5, I'm at -7. So my y-intercept is when x is 0. So I know my equation is y equals -5x minus 7. Okay, but let's say the table is not your choice, and let's say that you need another way to find that b. So this is me just giving you another way to find b. You might have to use the equation method. So if you get stuck and you don't know how to find b, always come back to y equals mx plus b. We know m and we know a point. Pick a point. I usually pick less negatives, so I'm going to pick the point -2, 3. I'm going to put 3 in for y. I already know my slope is -5, okay, and that's x, but x is -2, okay, and then I plus b. All right, so now you just do the math to solve your b. So you get 3 equals 10 plus b, and then I'm going to subtract that 10 from each side, and there it is. You still get a -7 for b. So again, it doesn't matter if you use the table method or the equation. I will say sometimes you have to use the equation method because you get really weird, the numbers get large or they're weird fractions. So sometimes the only way you can is that equation. I want you guys to pause the video and do example B, and we'll talk about it in class. Try point B. Okay, but now we have another way to write the equation of a line. It's called point slope form. This is the same, you're still writing the equation of a line, okay, but now it's going to be slope. Well, we still need to find slope because the word slope, but this time we're going to be writing a point. So we pick a point on the line and we're going to call that point x1 and y1. It can be any point on the line. So you guys already know from the last page, we already know example A and B. We've already found the slope. Okay. We're still going to pretend like we're going to find the slope. Okay, but you went through, you found your change in y and change in x, and we know it's 2. Now, it doesn't matter what point you pick, but pick a nice point. I'm going to probably pick that y-intercept because it stands out as a nice point, so I'm going to pick point 0, 3. Now all I have to do is plug those things into the point slope formula. So it's going to be y1, okay, y minus y1. Well, my y1 is 3, okay, and that's going to equal my slope of 2, parentheses, x. Now my x is just 0. There it is. And once you have it written like that, you are done. If it asks you for point slope form, you're done. Okay, that's what your answer should be, but I mistake and put y equals for you. You don't need y equals there. Your answer should be y minus 3 equals 2 times x minus 0. Okay, let's look at example B. Example B is going to be the same thing. We already know our slope is -1/2. So this time I'm going to pick a point that is not the y-intercept. So I'm going to pick the point 2, 2. This makes x1 and y1 easy. They're both 2. So now I have to write my equation. Okay, so it'll be y minus 2 equals -1/2 times x minus 2. And that's it. You're done. Now, I will challenge you, distribute that -1/2 and then add the 2 over and see if you get y equals mxb from our first examples. Okay, they should be the same. It should give you the exact same y equals mx plus b. Try it and see what you get. But again, we're going to take that graph away from you. It's not always going to be a nice picture. So sometimes you're going to get the slope and a point. Well, if you get slope and point, this is the easiest way because now all you have to do is plug those in. You don't even have to calculate anything. So you're going to get y minus a -1. Be careful, you can't drop negatives, equals -3/4 all over x minus 5. Now, at this point, be very careful. You can't just say y minus a -1 because what happens when you subtract a negative? Well, it's really like you're adding. So the simplified version of this will be y plus 1 equals -3/4 times the quantity x minus 5. That's how easy that one is. It's point slope is nice. Don't have to figure out a lot. Okay, But here's the next step. What happens if we take away the picture and we don't give you slope and we give you 2 points? How are you going to do this? Well, you guys know me. I'm going straight to the table. Set up my table and I find 3 and 7, and then I go to 5 and 1. Once my 2 points are in the table, then I go just like I would with a graph. What's your change and why? How is that pattern changing? Well, if I started at 7 and went down to 1, that's a -6. If I started at 3 and went to 5, I've added 2. So my slope is -6 divided by 2. Again, if you use the equation, you're going to get the same thing. Please don't forget to reduce. So -6 divided by 2 is 3 over 1, which is just -3. Now, what's really nice about this is you don't have to find B. You just plug in a point. I'm just going to pick 5, 1. So I get 5 minus 1 equals -3 times x minus 5. And there it is. You're done. That's all you have to do. So when you are working with these, keep trying. We're going to be doing a little bit more in terms of writing the equation of a line, but go ahead and try your next daily practice and it'll help you with both of these. Nicely done. We will see you guys soon.